you need a morning hug.
I missed you when I was sleeping.
Yeah. You missed me.
When I was sleeping, yeah.
Why don't you have a dream about me then?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to today's podcast. My name is Brittany Simon. In today's podcast, we're going to talk about JoJo Siwa.
I knew as soon as I got out, I wanted to fix things in my life.
Do you mean your relationship?
That is one of them. They straight up asked me if I was happy, and I said no.
Went to the after party and was dumped.
Was your relationship and what's going on between the two of you a catalyst in that?
You're such a sweetheart.
Love you.
We're going to use JoJo to talk about the things that have been on my mind lately in regards to age, gender, constructs around monogamy and non-monogamy, and how they play a role in self-discovery through a philosophical lens. So as you guys know on this channel, we do philosophy through pop culture, and JoJo's recent run-in with Chris Hughes and Kath Ebbs is just a reminder of how these binary constructs make everything harder on everyone involved. So JoJo Siwa is 22 years old. Let's start here with age. How age plays a role in how we discover the self. Every generation has its own tools in terms of self-discovery.
I think that it's great that, someone like Oprah, who's successful, has to pave the way for acceptance in the community. I mean, if this is what we have to do to break down barriers, then let's do it.
It's one thing to know you're gay or to feel you're gay, but when you tell someone and that comes out of your mouth, do you remember the first time you told someone you were gay?
I was sitting in a bar and I said to somebody, I'm gay. Well, I mean, I thought it was a great thing to announce.
You did.
But it wasn't so great at that time. It was like, late 60s.
I'm a mid-millennial. I'm 36 years old, and I had fewer tools than Gen Z does, and yet the tools they are utilizing might also be limited to their bubbles.
I'm a princess, duh.
So JoJo has been in the media since she was a kid, which means in some ways that celebrity children have limited tools at their disposal.
When it comes to the other dancers, knock them all off the dance floor because it's my week. All of the moms love hating on me, but I made it to the top 5.
Compared to children who don't always have everybody watching them. I noticed this when I read I'm Glad My Mom Died. We read it on the Discord over on Patreon. I realized that though Jeanette McCurdy was a celebrity, she was really, really limited with how much she could research on her own or even discover about herself. And it ended up making her very stunted.
I feel like I'm the best dancer here, and I think it's time everyone else here realizes it. I should be on Broadway. You have to sing, you have to dance, you have to be able to speak well, and I'm good at all of those.
JoJo is 22, which already is very young. And on top of that, because the world has been viewing her since she was a child, she's also under public scrutiny in a way that most of us never had to be.
Your relationship and what's going on between the two of you a catalyst in that?
You're such a sweetheart.
Love you.
Obviously, we're close.
But
I think you can have like a soulmate friendship. I think that's a thing.
Yeah.
So are they or aren't they? Just days after dumping her partner Kath Ebbs at the Celebrity Big Brother rap party, JoJo Siwa is setting the record straight on her relationship with housemate Chris Hughes.
What's the truth?
Obviously, we're tight.
It's hard to explain. It's just a really strong bond.
The thing I find the most interesting about this recent controversy, which if you don't know, JoJo was recently on the Big Brother celebrity show in the UK and got together with a guy named Chris Hughes, but it was sort of messy and confusing. So I'm going to give you the sort of summarized version of what happened.
Yeah. JoJo. Lovely lady.
Yeah.
Is she? Lovely girl, yeah.
Yeah.
She's a good lad.
Appreciate ya.
She's what I'd call some woman. I need a
You can't say that, Mickey.
I know, but I was talking about a cigarette. I know you. I know. Yeah, I know.
For 4 months leading into this event, JoJo was dating a person named Kath Ebbs. Both JoJo and Kath use they, them pronouns, though I believe Kath also allows she, her, and JoJo actually embraces all pronouns, but I believe people have primarily been using they, them for both of them. Please note, by the time they broke up, allegedly they were together for a total of 4 to basically 5 months, which I do think plays a role in how people process the relationship and the infidelity we're about to talk about. And according to Kath, when JoJo went into the show, they weren't allowed to communicate and they weren't allowed to keep each other informed.
To just give you my say, my story, my comment. Yes, I was watching the same show as you all. I could not talk to my partner at the time, and it was very unsettling and very hurtful, and I did feel betrayed by the things that I saw conspire.
But JoJo reassured her that the relationship was solid and that nothing was going to happen.
This situation is to finally address it after 2 weeks of sitting back, watching certain things unfold, and not being able to get any clarity from the person that it involved, who was what I thought one of the great loves of my life. I guess further humiliated in a weird way. That's more of a feeling. I don't know if it's fact, but I feel further humiliated in the fact that in that believing of someone's words and actions was actually left a bit high and dry.
So as the show was airing, that's when Kath, along with the rest of us, learned that JoJo and Chris had gotten closer. They explained it as sort of platonic soulmates, but they're quite intimate.
What I felt when you were over there was like you had my back.
You're right though. That not too bad a bit. Come on. Wait. You're getting upset, aren't you? Snuggling. It's a clean t-shirt as well.
And at first you're thinking, okay, well maybe this is the script of the show.
What's up?
Nothing.
Tell me.
No, nothing. Just
what?
Just talking in there.
Yeah.
It just made me really emotional.
Yeah, good.
And I feel very grateful.
Yeah.
I feel very confused. I feel very happy. I feel very lucky. I told you I do horrible with goodbyes.
But what are you saying goodbye to? Well, I know we're all leaving, but
Yeah.
But you're gonna go home and you got a big life out there.
Yeah.
You know, that's send you a present when you go home because that's appreciation because you're gonna have to give me your address though.
But reality TV is much like wrestling. It might be fake, but the injuries are real.
Everything we saw transpire, the emotional cheating, the overcrossing of boundaries, and the questioning of our relationship on national TV was not fabricated.
And so it is very hurtful for Kath to be the partner who has no contact with JoJo, seeing this on TV with the rest of us and wondering, did JoJo just cheat? All right, let's pause here to have some cheating nuance. You know I don't like cheating, but I also want to pose a question. What if JoJo didn't cheat in a traditional sense, but actually had an awakening of self after dating a person for 4 months, only to come to realize through platonic relationships that she might actually just be queer, and that's confusing, and she wasn't sure what to do with it? Obviously, it's very hurtful what happened to Kath, and it's very hurtful to find out this way, but I wonder if this is a symptom of celebrity culture. I wonder if this is a symptom of people not having better tools. Now, please note that JoJo is 22, Kath is 27, and Chris is 32. So some people felt like the older people in the conversation actually were more responsible, but I can see that ultimately JoJo is responsible for communicating to their partner how they feel. And I know, we've all been there. When I was in my 20s, I was absolutely engaging with people in their 30s, and honestly, I shouldn't have been. The truth is that people in their 30s should really not be looking at people in their early 20s because they themselves should be, well, mature enough not to engage with that. And I say this as somebody who grew up as a millennial, who grew up as a queer person deconstructing and confused about her place in the universe, coming from a really religious and conservative bubble. I was a virgin until I was 22. I had a very specific upbringing. And so when I was discovering myself, it got messy. And I want to talk about that messiness and how messy people attract messy people. So regardless of age, Chris Hughes is as messy as JoJo in some ways because you would think he would be mature enough to give JoJo a safe space to explore without tempting her to not only cheat, and that's still JoJo's responsibility not to engage, but you can be a participant in somebody's temptation, and so that's kind of not good. But you would think that he would be mature enough or old enough to do better. But obviously we saw that age doesn't play a role in maturity because Mickey Rourke was also on this season of Celebrity Big Brother, and he ended up using not only slurs towards JoJo, but threatened that if JoJo had time with him, he could tie her down and convince her not to be gay.
If I stay longer than 4 days, you won't be gay anymore.
I can guarantee I will still be gay and I will still be in a very happy relationship.
I'll tie you up.
I can promise you that won't happen. I dare you to try. You'll be the one tied up.
So there is something to be said about the stuntedness of celebrity bubbles and how regardless of how old you get, that you might not ever actually mature or gain any wisdom. And so people in JoJo's position can't rely on the elders in the community to help guide them.
All I know is right now is that the person that told me a lot of big things and reassured me till the cows come home has decided that they don't want to be with me and they want to explore independence and explore certain feelings.
Now let's talk about gender, because I think this played a huge role in all of this. Obviously, a lot of the backlash that JoJo got was the fact that they labeled themselves a lesbian, even though they're gender fluid.
Your comments about not being a lesbian anymore, I mean, I understand the context, but like,
I
for
don't
the people,
know if what I said in the heat of the moment, did I say being a lesbian? I
don't-
don't remember saying
that's
that. So
not
if I
my
ever
understanding.
did-
My understanding is you didn't feel like
Yeah.
lesbian fully encompassed, you know, your sexuality.
When you said I'm queer, people were interpreting that as you're open to all genders of attraction, including men. And correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think they thought you saying I'm queer could open up this attraction that you might have to Chris.
Okay, welcome to being bisexual. Welcome to being pansexual.
From the conservative side, Candace Owens came out feeling vindicated.
Adolescence, as I have said many times, is a natural phase to want to be nothing like your parents and to experiment with doing bad things. Once upon a time, people had cigarettes and they smoked cigarettes in high school. Now we have transformed into a world where people can like change their, experiment with their gender. And I felt in my heart and in my soul that that was the situation with JoJo Siwa when she was like being a lesbian too hard.
She feels like this transformation proves that JoJo was never a lesbian, instead of realizing that this just means that JoJo is on a journey of queerness that also encompasses sort of lesbian, but not the lesbian that we know of, but a more fluid kind.
You'd probably go, why do I feel like she's not heterosexual? That's how I felt about JoJo Siwa. And she didn't like that. Here's a clip of what I said about JoJo Siwa very quickly, and I'll show you how she responded. I don't believe JoJo Siwa is a lesbian, by the way. I want to state that very clearly. I do believe that she's desperate for attention. She wrote, I haven't watched the video yet, but if it has anything to do with your caption, respectfully back the F off. And it looks like I'm correct.
I always told myself I'm a lesbian, but I think being here, I realized, oh no, I'm not lesbian, I'm queer.
You are.
And I think that's really cool.
You are.
I'm switching letters!
You're queer.
All roads lead to Candace.
I'm not sure why Candace Owens thought this was a win, since JoJo literally said they are queer. And I think JoJo is heavily misunderstood by a lot of communities because she doesn't quite know herself well enough to express it to others.
If you didn't want to be famous, you wouldn't be here.
I would say it's my mission in life to make JoJo a star.
But they are obviously on a journey of self-exploration that we should let them go on and mind our business. Though I understand the desire to, criticize them for cheating is there. I want to criticize them for cheating, but I also want to criticize society first and foremost for putting everybody in positions in which they cannot have honest conversations with the people around them, because it is almost easier to cheat than to have hard conversations with partners in today's cultural climate. Hear me out when I say this, and I understand I've been cheated on. It sucked. Even in poly circles, even in open relationships, the place where you think people would feel the safest to have open dialogue, it still is more culturally acceptable to tell other people you're feeling bad about your relationship, to exit the relationship in a messy way, to literally cheat your way out of a relationship. I feel like it's so much more common than just sitting down with someone and saying, I love you, I loved our time together, but I think it's time to move in a different direction. And I think that's why so many of us have messy breakup stories, because it is hard to break up with somebody, even if you loved that person. Even a good breakup is a hard breakup. And though I think some couples are definitely able to have really great breakups, I think most of us have pretty horrible / just like devastating breakups. And I think there's something to be said about that. I think we just don't have the tools right now to offer people alternative ways to communicate a desire to move in a different direction. And I know even if you have a sort of friend breakup, it can be hard. I've done this where I've had to break up with friends and say, hey, I think it's time to go in a different direction. And then people are like, but why? Why? I understand that we live in a world that makes us think that, oh, this is our one and only love. This is our one and only friend, that these things are going to last a lifetime. But most relationships don't last a lifetime. Just a reminder, it was a 4-month relationship. And these are the types of relationships I'm talking about. It is normal to date somebody and break up until you find your high compatibility partner. So if you think about it in that way, I think it's pretty clear that a lot of us aren't having these conversations in a way that sets people up for sort of success. So of course, JoJo is messy. Of course, Chris is messy. Of course, all these people are messy. They have no tools. And then you add on the extra layer of gender fluidity outside the binary, and then the rules really go out the window. Because even when it comes to breakups, people will say that men and women break up differently, when in reality, it's just people being raised as said gender are taught that said gender should break up in particular ways, or even in some cases start off relationships in particular ways. An example is something like a man should ask out a woman. This is a binary way to look at dating and courtship. Your gender shouldn't play a role so much as your desire to be with that person and to communicate with them in a clear way. So we have to remember that gender is absolutely playing a role in everything that we do. Even if we ourselves are identifying as gender fluid or non-binary or deconstructing, we're still living in a world that hasn't done those things and isn't those things.
JoJo Siwa makes history. History, people, with her partner, Jenna.
For the first time in Dancing with the Stars history, I am dancing with another female, and I'm really, really proud.
The next part of this that I think adds on to the messiness is the monogamy versus the sort of open relationship, poly relationship anarchy aspect. If you're in a monogamous relationship, which is what I'm assuming Kath and JoJo were in, then any possible infidelity or anything that seems like infidelity is going to be seen as a betrayal. Now, in my personal opinion, infidelity comes when you have agreed upon contract, regardless of what it is, and someone breaks it. So if JoJo and Kath sat down and said all of these things will be considered infidelity, and then JoJo does it, she's cheated. I think what ends up happening in a lot of monogamous relationships is there isn't a conversation. There's an assumption. Because we're together, you will not do X things. I've heard from people say, like, obviously you're in a relationship, so you wouldn't do XYZ, hug somebody, kiss somebody, cuddle with somebody. But that's not true universally for all relationships. In some situations, monogamous couples do allow their partners to kiss other people, sleep with other people, hug other people, cuddle other people. And you might say, well, Brittany, are they monogamous or are they poly then? Well, polyamory is something different, right? Polyamory is many loves. It's having multiple relationships at the same time. Versus an open relationship is also different, and relationship anarchy is also different. All of these labels are constructs created by communities to express an understanding between the people communicating using these words. So if you don't know what I mean when I say these words, that's okay. That just means we're in different bubbles. But that means that the way we communicate will now be a layer of harder because we now have to go through definitions and make sure we agree on them or that you understand them within context. So I don't know the relationship structure that Kath and JoJo had, but I will say that I'm assuming it was some form of monogamous that probably wasn't monogamish, right? Monogamy with a little bit of a spice. Probably wasn't that. It was probably monogamy. And so Kath felt betrayed. There was infidelity. And according to Kath, there was what we would call sort of like cheating. Like I couldn't imagine watching a show and seeing my partner engage with somebody intimately in a way that I didn't see coming or I thought we had agreed not to engage with. It would feel heartbreaking. And I think Kath deserves to feel betrayed in that way, right? Now, I think what's interesting is Kath is 27 and JoJo's 22. So again, there's something at play here. It's not the worst age gap, but there was such a significance between my early 20s and my late 20s that I think that could always play a role, but maybe that's just my own personal anecdotal experience, right? Kath said that JoJo basically came back from the show and during one of these like press conferences or meetings or some party basically broke up.
And I honestly thought I would come on here right now with my partner being like, it was just a TV show and it was all fabricated and we're happy as Larry. But the truth of the matter is I decided to show up for my partner and hold up my end of the bargain of being in a partnership and being a teammate. And I flew across the world to support and be there and hold that person in whatever they would be experiencing, leaving such a wild experience. And instead, I was dumped at the after party with Chris in the next room, which is fucking crazy to say out loud. It's truly crazy. Like, there's a lot of processing that needs to happen. I will take accountability for the fact that the internet, oddly enough, did warn me and I had my own instincts, but I chose to believe in what I thought was, I don't know, the kindness and the connection I experienced on my own level, like in my own life. Yeah, I wanted to honor that and believe that because it felt so true. So true. In an odd way, like, I don't know if you can, I haven't processed it enough to, if you'd want to call it love bombing or whatever, but it seems to me I have experienced a version of that, being told that I'm the love of someone's life, being asked to marry them before this social experiment, being adored throughout behind closed doors, being hurt by what I saw, but wanting to work through it and have a conversation and get clarity. And
I think it's also okay to like work it out in therapy and talk to family and friends. But Kath did decide to make a video on the internet which, you know, was great for us and my podcast and your video viewing, and the internet ate it up, but is it good for the people involved? And then what can we learn from this? So I'm going to recommend a book. It's a classic in our communities. It's called The Ethical Slut. It's a really great book. Everyone's read it who's in kink or poly or BDSM or any of these things. And even though I'm monogamous now, monogamy and polyamory and all of these words for me are very fluid and contextual based off the people in the relationship. So even if you're monogamous, I really recommend you read it, because you might think like, what does this have to do with me? It's just a book about constructs and teaching you that you get to decide what your relationship is and how it plays out and how, you know, how and what it means to you as the people involved in it. When we think about this through a philosophical lens, because we do philosophy through pop culture here, we're thinking about the why, the meaning of the self within the universe, and what is JoJo's place in the universe? What is their relationship with self? And what does it mean to engage with somebody of sort of a different gender outside the scope of their monogamous relationship? For so many of us who go on this very specific journey of figuring out who we are and who the self is and what label matches us.
People know that you are gay and lesbian anyway. Your closet does nothing but trap you in a prison. It makes everything in your life a lie. It's not a matter of flaunting. If two people walk down the street holding hands and they're straight, it's called sharing. If we walk down the street holding hands, it's called flaunting. If you are not ashamed of your lover, if you do not want to hide who you are and your right to love and your family relationship, if you want to have respect and start having a healthy self-esteem, then you have got to come out.
As a mid-millennial myself, when I was coming out at 21, I chose lesbian as my label. And a lot of the people on the internet were mad at me. And I was a very small content creator. Nobody really knew me.
People ask me, how is it you're lesbian? How is it that people are gay? How do people become gay? Being gay is the same thing as being straight. It's, you know, the secret that people have kept inside that they don't want to admit. But it's so simple. It's going to be fantastic. Watch, you're going to love this. To be gay, all you need is one thing. You need to exist.
And I was really just expressing how I felt in the moment, because at the time my friends told me there was no such thing as a bisexual, because bisexuality is just straight women making out on behalf of or for men. And so I chose lesbian because I thought, hey, I like girls more than I like boys.
Hello ladies and dudes. So today I am going to make a online dating video from like eHarmony and Plenty of Fishes and stuff like that, because you know, it's the #1 way to meet people. So I thought I'd try it out. Hi, my name is Simon. I'm 22 years old.
But now that I'm 36, I like everybody regardless of gender. I'm pansexual. Like, I don't even think about myself as existing within the binary anymore. So the other part of this that I think is so important is that who you are now might not be who you are in 50 years. And though there are binary gay people and binary straight people, I think most of us are somewhere in the middle and very fluid. And so for me as a pansexual person, I feel like if all of us sit down and deconstruct gender and relationship and meaning and label, we'll actually come away a lot more, I want to say open, but what I really just mean is like not in the binary. I cannot tell you how many times in my life I thought I'm bisexual, very binary, man, woman. And now I can't even imagine thinking that the gender of my partner matters. Though, tangent, it can matter in regards to how you're interacting with the person who's deconstructed. So if you're with a man who hasn't deconstructed the patriarchy and the benefits of being a man under that patriarchy, then maybe there's going to be some tension there. Or if you're dating a woman in the binary sense who also has internalized misogyny in relation to the patriarchy, like that's going to cause some issue there. But I think that these are all very personal journeys and you can't rush them and you can't force them. They have to happen at the right time. And so we're watching a very young person in the public eye go through this deconstruction, and how far JoJo will deconstruct is up to them, which brings us into the last section I want to talk about, which is the fame aspect.
I'ma come back like a boomerang.
So here we have JoJo, who's been in the public eye since she was a kid. Here we have Chris, who's a celebrity.
What would you rate yourself out of 10?
9 3/4. High, innit?
What are you, David Beckham?
No, I'm better looking than David.
Kath, who's a content creator.
Straight up, I'm gonna crash the fuck out on this app. The level of insanity on this thing. Oh my God. I feel like when I'm on Instagram, it's like a little warm hug and everyone's just kind of like talking to each other in like inside voices. And then I go on TikTok and everyone's screaming. Just screaming. And no level of shh. We'll quiet down the noise. Like, genuinely, can we all just fucking chill out.
All these people are public figures in the public eye, being viewed for public consumption. And here I am contributing to that. And here we are commenting on the intimacy of their relationships, in which we will never know the exact details of how anything happened. No matter how many videos they make about it, we'll never really know, because it is so intimate what happens between people in private, in the moment. It's so human. It's so specific. We'll never really know. But what we can do is learn from them and their sort of public display of messiness and try to make our life a little less messy. So here are some things that stand out to me. 1, don't talk about your relationships on the internet unless you absolutely have to. 2, maybe don't post and announce you're in relationships and use it for content and money and status, because sometimes things are meant to be private. And 3, one of the things that Kath said in their video that stood out to me was that JoJo was saying, I love you, I want to marry you, you're the love of my life. JoJo's 22. Of course she's saying those things, because in the moment you feel it, and then you try to get serious and you realize like, oh, I'm not going to marry you. This isn't the love of my life. Until you meet your real high compatibility partner, the love of your life, everyone you date up until that moment is going to feel like, oh my God, this is the greatest love I've ever had. This is definitely my person. Is this my person? So Kath, I understand, was told by JoJo that, I want to marry you, I want to be with you, but the girl is 22. People are messy, and that most of us are in these relationships not in the public eye. Most of us get to have as many relationships, let's say 5 to 7, right? Where we think this is our partner. We move in with them. We introduce them to our family. We announce on our own social media, but not as a public figure, as a private person, this is the love of my life, only to then break up, because that's what normally happens. Normal people date multiple people, introduce them to family members, and then break up with them. That's pretty common. And so, I think Kath coming out on social media and saying like, JoJo said they were gonna love me and marry me. Yeah, of course they did. They probably were in love with you until they weren't, which is why a lot of relationships end up this way, because 1, we are in the dating phase, being swept up by all our emotions and sort of that like new relationship energy. And 2, we overpromise because in the moment we really feel it, but it's obviously not true. That's why I say there's a difference between dating and falling in love and actually being serious about marriage. Because when you go into courtship and you're serious, like you are dead serious about marriage, you will be very careful and cautious about saying things like, I love you and I want to be with you. Because when you say that, it will actually mean something. Versus when you're in any sort of relationship, that's kind of just what people say. It's kind of just like a thing people say. Okay, they pick out baby names and start planning a wedding, but it's not the real thing. And so the question is in life, do you know the new relationship energy, being swept up in this new relationship energy and the real thing? And then according to my research, JoJo and Kath were only together for 3 months. So what are we talking about here in terms of how serious it really was? It just feels like we forget that relationships are messy and that people are messy. And the only difference between JoJo, Kath, Chris, and the rest of us is that they're celebrities and it's in public. And people are writing articles about it, and people are interviewing them about it, and people are talking about it.
Right now, I'm putting a stop to Chris and I. That's a friendship. It's a beautiful friendship. There's a lot more to life than what you see online. And so don't believe everything you see or hear. Always know that there's always context. If I could give any advice, it would be that I spent the last 20 days in an environment getting to know myself. I spent the last 20 days in an environment with strangers, only being stuck with my own thoughts, with no phone. And it taught me that there's so much more to life than what goes on in other people's lives. And you have your life and your bubble and your family and your friends and new people and what goes on online on social media, today's world. So it does affect you, but don't let it rinse you and consume you, because it's not all true.
The truth is that most of you are messy and most of you have similar stories. And, I just think we're blowing it out of proportion because they're celebrities, which is, what people do. So again, I'm not criticizing anybody. I'm just pointing it out so we can have a better relationship with what we're viewing, so we can deconstruct our own, engagement with celebrity culture. Because ultimately when I make these podcasts, they're for you. They're not for the celebrities. They're for you. They're not for the people I cover in the videos. They're for you to watch and realize, oh yeah, I forgot I was taking it too seriously. And I forgot I'm just a person on a planet on a floating rock in space. Like, okay, I need to have a little humility and remember that I was also messy in my 20s and that JoJo's just messy in their 20s. And that's not much deeper than that. I'm not a fan of the infidelity. I think JoJo should get their story together when they date people and should make sure they're not engaging in infidelity in any way. I also think Chris needs to be sort of held accountable through his own value system in regards to how he contributed to that infidelity. I think Mickey Rourke being on the show was horrible, and his use of the F word and his insinuation that he can make JoJo straight was gross. I think people are just not as great as we think they are, but also we have the potential to be so much better. So deconstruct this idea of putting people on a pedestal and remember that like we're all messy, but we can always be better. Remember that the road to hell is paved in good intentions. And so we don't want to do too much good. We just want to do less bad every day. And one of the ways we can be less bad in regards to this story is I think reminding ourselves that going after a 22-year-old when we ourselves used to be that messy 22-year-old feels a little hypocritical. So if you're going to go after JoJo, have a little compassion and remember that like dating is messy and it's hard, especially when you've had a camera on you since you were literally a child.
Do you speak for everyone? Do you answer for everyone? It's rude.
Or I guess you can't remember that because that was never your life and that's specifically JoJo's, and you will never know what it is like to be in that particular kind of cage. With that said, I would love to hear your thoughts, so leave your comments in the sections down below. If you are more of an audio listener, we are on Spotify, so you can check out my podcast there. And remember that I do have a streaming channel where I stream Monday through Friday, links in the description if you guys want to subscribe to that channel. Otherwise, thank you for being here, for watching the podcast, and I will see you for the next one. Bye.